Hello, my name is Kate Chadbourne, and I'm the founder of the Bardic Academy, which is a school for musicians and singers and writers and young scholars. And today I'd like to speak with you about mistakes. This is the third video in a series I'm making called Creative Hurts and How to Heal Them. And these topics are some of the big ones that all artists and creators I know have to sort of come to grips with in order to keep going. Mistakes is a big one. I think the fear of mistakes, the fear of making mistakes in front of other people can keep us on the bench and keep us from actually doing the things that we dream of daring to do. So it's important to think about. Of course, we always have to ask, what do mistakes mean? Why do they scare us so much? And when I look at what I have feared in the past, I have feared that if I make mistakes, that means that I'm an imposter, that I am lazy, that I am just not good enough, that I'm somehow fake or cheeky even, like unless you're perfect is the idea. I think you should just never get up and do anything. You should just wait forever until you can be perfect. So that can really keep you from doing what you want to do, that idea. Now, the mistakes that we fear so much come in a couple of varieties as far as I can see. Now, I want to say right off the bat, every time I perform publicly, I make mistakes. Some of them are invisible to other people. They are maybe a few word swaps or a tiny flagging in the rhythm or a replacement chord that I can recover from quickly and it's okay. There's all kinds of little mistakes that maybe a handful of people would recognize and that I certainly recognize. And then I also make the big whopper mistakes. And those are the ones where the train goes right off the track and all the words in the next verse just somehow empty right out my ear. Or I forget the chord pattern, or I just kind of have a mental meltdown and suddenly I can't even remember what's supposed to happen next. And there's a kind of exhilaration and terror as this happens to you. And if you've ever been through it, you know that your own response can range from a kind of hysteria, it's funny, to deep shame. Like, what's wrong with me? How could I let this happen? It can be terrible. So I think we need to figure out what to do in the face of mistakes. And I have a few suggestions. For one thing, I want to say that even the artists that we admire the most, even the ones that we think of as world-class artists, regularly make mistakes. They just do. Now, their mistakes are probably much smaller than my whopper mistakes, but they do make them. I've seen them, actually. I've seen them start over. I've seen them lose track of the words or lose track of the tune and grin, actually, and grin and come back in. So I think it's important just to open our arms and recognize that there's no exceptions to this. Anyone who is stepping out in front of other people to share art of any kind is making mistakes. Big ones and little ones, but definitely we're all in this one together. We say that babies, when they learn to walk, really it's a series of mistakes, right, as they learn. And we like to tell that to say that you have to make mistakes in order to learn. But I'd like to add that in order to keep going, you have to make mistakes as well. Adults also stumble. And we don't say to an adult who stumbles, I can't believe you're even trying to walk. What nerve you have to even stand up and walk. Look, you just fell down. That's ridiculous. After all this time, why aren't you good at it? We never say that, but we do regularly to artists. And I think that has to change. And of course it starts with us. So recognizing that everyone makes mistakes is something that will help. A second thing I want to offer is create more occasions in your life to make mistakes. Do it deliberately. Get in front of people. There is no better way to learn and grow in your art than to bring other people into the mix. I like to say that human attention, meaning people looking at me, acts as a solvent, meaning as soon as people look at you, whatever you think you had completely together falls apart, at least a little bit. So it's a great practice to play and sing in front of other people. Even if you bring people into your home, give them a cup of tea and play them your songs, it will help you grow. And what will happen is that you will make mistakes in front of them, and you'll realize a couple of things. One, that sometimes you can actually get out of a mistake just fine. You can cover it up. You can emphasize it, right? So that it becomes a feature and not a mistake. Another thing that you'll realize is that you don't die. You might feel ashamed, you might feel sad, you might regret it, but you didn't die. And you'll also recognize finally that other people are pretty generous. Mostly people are very generous, and they're wishing for you to do well. And what they're listening for is the heart of what you're offering. So a third maybe practice to kind of come to grips with mistakes is, if you're planning to do a public performance, have a couple of bulletproof items in the mix. What I mean by that is, I tend to make the most mistakes on new or less often performed items in my set list. So say there's a song that I've only performed publicly twice. If that's on the agenda for tonight, I'm going to put a few things around it that I know pretty well, because I know that I very likely will make a few mistakes in that song. And I want to support myself by putting some things on either side of that item that feel easy, that there's no kind of anxiety or clenching or worry, so that I know on the other side it's going to be fine. And finally, I'd like to offer this. Remember why you're doing what you're doing. It really has nothing to do with perfection, does it? At least it doesn't for me. It has to do with love. That's the truth. We love making music. We love sharing poems. We love telling a story. All the reasons that you're standing up and sharing anything with people is because you love the art and you love the people, and you want to share something that you think is worth sharing. And doing it perfectly, the whole idea of perfect, which is really, it should be like last place in priorities of what matters when we stand up. Doing anything perfectly doesn't really matter at all in comparison to doing it with an open heart and a desire to connect with other people and a desire to enjoy yourself. So come back to that. Finally, I'd just like to offer that it can be worth thinking about your own attitude toward the mistakes of others. Just sort of take a beat on, how do you feel when you witness someone make a mistake? Do you feel pity? Do you feel disgust? Do you feel like a deep criticism well up? You know, if you're hung up on other people's mistakes, if they make you deeply uncomfortable, just take a look at how you feel about yourself. Because here's what I've noticed. The people who are really, really hung up on the mistakes of others are generally not giving themselves permission to grow and experience and offer what they want to do, what they want to offer. So pretty much you can tell where you are in regard to mistakes by how you feel about others' mistakes. And that's not to criticize yourself. That's only because we're striving for more freedom. At least I am, and I think you are too. We want to be free to make the art we want to make, and we want to do it with joy, right? And also, I want to be part of a musical and artistic community that welcomes people who are maybe not 1000% perfect. Guess what? That includes me, for sure. I want to be part of a musical, of a world, actually, of artists who would rather share it now than wait 50 years until it's perfect. And I bet you would too. So let's kind of shift the idea of mistakes as evidence of us being lesser than, and actually shift it into evidence that we're doing it, evidence that we're in the arena and we're making the art we want to make. I hope it will make you proud. I hope your mistakes can make you proud. I'm proud of all of us for making them and keeping going. Thank you so much for listening to me today, and thank you for your bravery and for being willing to grapple with the feelings of making mistakes and keep going.